Good afternoon, my wonderful, lovely people. A pleasant Sunday to you. If you have not yet made Jesus Christ your personal Lord and Savior, feel free to do so. He's the best being ever. Certainly, that would be the best decision you could ever make. Now, today is almost like an iconic day in a sense. The Jamaica Labour Party will be meeting in halfway tree to announce the date of the general election, the upcoming general election, which will be held sometime this year. And we know the different legalities are surrounding the general election and how, if anything, it can go all the way down without Parliament into December. I mean, just the whole shebang. But we hope that that will not happen because, as the Prime Minister says, we just want to get this over with and exercise our franchise by voting. I hope people will be voting. Vote wisely, vote smart. Do not vote because your auntie and your uncle says to vote for this one. Vote on your conviction, who you think should win. Please, my wonderful people. The problem with a lot of things that tends to happen is that we pass. One of the things we pass on is a lot of generational nonsense and foolery. We pass that down. I'm not saying that sometimes tradition is not important, but you cannot just look at tradition alone. You have to look at feasibility. You have to look at reliability. You have to look at what is working and what will work, what will help the country, where you see potential. Don't just go with, my mother was this, my father was this, my auntie, my uncle, my siblings, my niece, my nephew, the dog and the rat. No. Stop the foolishness. That's why, the die-hearted this and that has really corrupted and destroyed a bliss that could happen in political life. There are many people who would want to be a part of politics, but they're so afraid because they don't want to be tainted. They don't want to be accused falsely. So many of us would love to be a part of it genuinely because we genuinely want to be philanthropic and help people. We want to, exude our humanitarian side in a godly way, in a good way, in the right way to help the Jamaican people. But many people are afraid to because they don't want to be labeled something that they're really and truly not, you know. And sometimes, as the saying goes, you lie down with dogs, you certainly more than likely will end up getting up with fleas. But my wonderful people, if you do not vote, you really do not have a voice. So it makes no sense you're pressuring for a date to be called, and many of you are pressuring for a date to be called, and you do not vote. You do not vote. You sanction anything that goes wrong. And it doesn't matter who comes in. Wrong will happen, right will happen. That's the thing. But I want you to weigh the balance, weigh the ballots, and weigh everything. Don't be found wanting. Go out and vote. Exercise your franchise. It is incumbent upon you. It means that you want change, And thank God for the advent of social media. A lot of these politicians can't go on with foolishness anymore like that because, the people, the commentators, the vloggers, the bloggers, everybody's coming out like full force, like a bull in a pen who really wants to come out. And they're not going to stand for the foolery. They're not going to stand for the nonsense. We're hoping that whichever way it goes for the election, that we hold these leaders accountable and they cannot, as them start, they have to do right for the next so many years. As they start, they have to do right. I heard the Prime Minister, he was on a podcast. I thought it was overseas, but somebody said it was somewhere in the western side of our country. And the podcaster, was saying, well, they were playing some news clippings to say Jamaica was like a running joke as it relates to our debt. Like they said, Jamaica is still alive because of how high our debt was. And it has come down. So we have moved from a basket case into a case study. Like they can hardly believe it while talking to the Prime Minister. Because of fiscal discipline that we have experienced. We are no longer, considered a joke, like the laugh, the clown of the town as a country. We are generally mocked and pushed aside and ostracized, stonewalled, gaslighted, blackballed. You name all of these narcissistic behaviors and tendencies. And the Prime Minister said, we have moved from basket case. Prime Minister Andrew Holness said, we have moved from the basket case to a case study. And I was really, really elated to hear that, because I remember for years, all we would hear is just borrowing, borrowing. And that spirit has just really consumed our country. When we look across, we see quite a number of loans, and many of us have no choice to sometimes take on, because we have to survive, we have to live, we have to cohabit. You know, I was listening to a man on his live on TikTok saying that 10, 15 or more years ago, people were so helpful. Like, you know, families would have helped their relatives to go back to school. And I, as I'm saying this, I remember, you know, as I say this, I remember reading somewhere earlier on in the Old Testament where it says, help your relatives. Help your relatives. In fact, let me see if I can find that specific script. I was trying to find the one in the Old Testament, but it was difficult. But 1 Timothy 5:8, it says, But if any do not take care of their relatives, especially members of their own family, like your immediate family, they have denied the faith and worse than an unbeliever. But I remember somewhere in the Old Testament I read where it says, help your relatives. Help your relatives. Some of you have burned bridges and are now regretting it. You washed your hands clean from your relatives. And now life has created a change and you don't know what to do. But listen to me, beautiful people. Go out and vote. Vote smart. Vote wise. Do not vote because your auntie says so or your mother says so. Vote because you feel that this particular party will do a better job. Vote because, you know, you may not have the facts. So I say you look at, all you need to do is look at you may not have all the facts, but look at some of the facts. Look at what was done or what is being done, and then you vote in accordance. Please stop doing it because you are die-hearted. I was reading something in the Gleaner today, and a man said, boy, him only voting out of, like he's saying, just because he's a particular associated with a particular party, could be interpreted that he's saying the party now go win. You know, he was just voting on just obligation for whatever reason. That's how I read it. That's how I understood it could mean something else. And I said, that's an unfortunate way to vote. That is so sad. You know what I mean? It's we need to understand the importance of being loyal and committed and devoted. You're not loyal and committed. You shouldn't be loyal and committed and devoted to some maybe bad practices, malpractices, bad ideologies, you know, ideologies that won't help. So you're really loyal, you're wasting your loyalty, you're wasting your devotedness or your devoted nature and your committed way of life to folly and to foolery. I just want us to vote smart and to vote wise. And don't look at this sort of combative way of politics, you know, because people are being demonized and pushed aside. And we listen to the foolishness that is being said. No. We look at facts, not feelings. And always be on the lookout when you hear somebody just only they're zooming in on an individual and tearing down an individual, as opposed to hitting out against injustices, as opposed to hitting out against unfairness, as opposed to hitting out against wrong. It means it's a personal vendetta as opposed to nation building. You have to be very wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. It is imperative that you are. So we await the Prime Minister's calling, and we look forward to greater things coming, you know, after the election, and that the people of Jamaica will do well. People will get better pay, like the people in Singapore, you know, when your take home can be like 700,000 for just the mid-level. So people with masters and so on can get a decent pay, decent salary. You know, I had to bring that in. Anyway, guys, you know what to do. Read TikTok and YouTube. Subscribe. Give me one of those lions. Thank you very, very much. Have a good one.